Hello friends, my name is Ankit. I make educational videos on US healthcare. I also write blogs on the US healthcare trends. I'll pop the URL in the description for your reference. If you are new to my channel, welcome. Please like and subscribe to my channel so that you have latest updates on all the new videos that are being posted. In the previous video, we talked about electronic prior authorization. Specifically, we talked about the CRD implementation guide. In this video, we'll talk about the documentation template and rules, also known as DTR. Just to summarize the previous discussion, the Da Vinci Burden Reduction Implementation Guide, it is part of the set of interrelated implementation guides that are focused on reducing clinical and payer burden. The Da Vinci Burden Reduction Implementation Guides are Coverage Requirement Discovery, also known as CRD, which provides decision support to providers at the time they are ordering diagnosis, specifying treatment, making referrals, scheduling appointment, etc. The Documentation Template and Rules DTR, which allows providers to download smart questionnaire rules, example SQL, and provides a Smart on FHIR app or EHR app that executes them to gather information relevant to a performed or planned service. Execution of the questionnaire and rules may also be performed by an application that is part of the provider's EHR. Prior authorization support, also known as PAS, it allows provider systems to send and payer system to receive prior authorization requests using FHIR, which still meets regulatory mandate to have X12278 used where required to transport the prior authorization, potentially specifying processing for either or both exchange partners. Let's go over the overall architecture for the electronic prior authorization process. So in the coverage requirement discovery or CRD flow, the provider creates the order or the referral. So as part of this process, there are multiple scenarios. So first is there anything provider should know? They retrieve the patient data using hooks, and then is there any coverage requirement? Is there any additional documentation that needs to be filled in? The provider receives the coverage information from the payer. As part of the DTR workflow, the provider clicks to launch the Smart App card. It is part of the EHR system. They retrieve the questionnaire or the SQL rule information. The user verifies the data, and that information is readily available now for the provider to move to the prior authorization step. In the prior authorizations support step, the provider requests the prior authorization. This prior authorization request is passed on to the payer system in the form of X12278 request. The payer system returns the X12278 response, which gets converted into the FHIR prior authorization response. Now, specifically talking about the documentation template and rules DTR implementation guide, the documentation template and rules implementation guide specifies how payer rules can be executed in a provider context to ensure that documentation requirements are met. This IG is a companion to the CRD IG, which uses clinical decision support hooks to query payers to determine if there are documentation requirements for a proposed item, certain medication, procedure, or other service. When these requirements exist, CDS cards will be returned with information about the requirements. This IG leverages the ability of CDS hooks to link to a Smart on FHIR app or native EHR app to launch and execute payer rules. This IG specifies how to maintain the transaction state as the workflow transitions from CDS hooks to the app. It describes the interaction between the app and the payer IT system to retrieve documentation requirements in the form of SQL and a FHIR questionnaire resource. This IG leverages clinical quality language, also known as SQL, to allow payers to inspect a patient's record for the necessary information related to the required documentation for a proposed item, certain medication, procedures, or other service. This IG details the use of a payer-provided questionnaire resource and results from SQL execution to generate a questionnaire response resource containing the necessary information. This IG also provides methods to persist the questionnaire response in the provider's electronic health record system and optionally send the questionnaire response to the payer. This IG specifies how to maintain the transaction state as the workflow transition from CDS hooks to app. It describes the interaction. It leverages SQL, and then finally it ensures that the provider knows what are the payer specific rule requirement. We'll move on to the CRD and DTR workflow. So as part of this process, the provider looks at devices, services, or medication order. The CDS hooks triggers the query. It invokes the CDS service and sends pre-fetch FHIR data, including order information. The CDS service searches repository leveraging FHIR data. The next step is CRD sends the CDS hooks response card with link to Smart on FHIR app or native app. The EHR system retrieves the rules if necessary, parses rules from SQL, identifies gap in the data available in EHR, and populates the template. The final step of the process is the EHR system displays the gaps, collects the missing data, and stores as part of the medical record in the FHIR. We'll look at a DTR workflow example here. This is a home oxygen therapy ordering workflow example. The example shows an overview of how the DTR Smart on FHIR app works when ordering the home oxygen therapy. It determined that documentation and or prior authorization is required for coverage. The DTR Smart app or equivalent native app is launched from the CDS card. The DTR Smart on FHIR app or equivalent native EHR app fetches SQL rules and a FHIR questionnaire from the payer server. The engine then extracts as many answers to it can in order to pre-populate a FHIR questionnaire response with FHIR-based EHR data. If there is a missing information, the user can manually provide it in fully populated way in the questionnaire response. If the questionnaire response is fully populated, the questionnaire is not shown to the user unless specifically requested. It then writes the FHIR questionnaire response back to the FHIR server and optionally to the payer. So basically in the DTR workflow, the provider is looking at payer specific rules, and that helps to generate the specific questionnaire and questionnaire response, and the member is only involved if there is a missing piece of information. I hope this information was helpful. In the next video, we will talk about the prior authorization support or PAS. If you like the content of this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you would like me to make videos on any specific topic, please do comment on my post. I appreciate you taking time to talk about the FHIR interoperability. I'll talk to you until next time. Have a good day.